Okay, after that introduction, many people out there know what it is that I'm actually going to talk about, the Nemesis. And for those of you who don't, what's the connection? What's this all about? Well, obviously Nemesis, as the explainer was there, was the goddess of retribution in Greek mythology. Well, Nemesis is also a mechanical mod which in its own right has become a bit of a legend, a modern day legend. It was only literally just launched. The first one ever was March of this year, 2013. And in a very short period of time, I mean within the first month of it coming out, it just became the mod that everybody wanted to get hold of. Now there's a reason for that, and the reason for it is really it's an exceptionally well made piece. Well, I was lucky last week. I was in Germany and I happened to meet up with Michalis. And Michalis is the creator of the Nemesis. And in the past, he basically invented the Steam machine and also the 69 mod. But the Nemesis was, I think, probably the third thing that he came up with. And anyhow, I met him and his partner, Katarina, in Germany last week. And so I was able to have a great chat with him, talk to him about, what it was that was behind, his reason for doing this. Really just to sort of find out from him, where it is he is now and where it is that he sees things going and what it is that he's actually going to produce in the future. Now, he has a couple of things that are coming up, which will be coming out probably next month, so in November 2013, and I'll talk about those later on. But just to get back to the Nemesis, which is this is basically about, I was lucky enough to get my first Nemesis probably, I don't know, maybe about 2 months ago. So this was my first Nemesis here, and I absolutely love it. It is just, everything about it is just right. This is a stainless steel version, matte stainless steel, brushed stainless steel, and there's the serial number on the back, 3431 Nemesis. Really, really gorgeous thing. So I've been using that for the last couple of months and using it all the time, and it has never failed me once. But when I was over last week and I met the guys over in Germany, I was luckily able to get hold of a brass Nemesis. And I've been wanting a brass Nemesis for a long, long time. So here it is. I've got something on top of it as well, which is a K-Fun. But look at that. And there's my serial number on the back of it there. It is just stunning. And it's made from navy brass. It's exactly the same size as the other one. Let's see if we can put it up beside it there. There's the other one beside it. But it is just, I love it. I love the feel of it. I love everything about it. And in this particular case, I've got a K-Fun sitting on top of it with a brass drip tip, also by Atomiser. So both of those being, as I said, navy brass. Now the difference between brass and navy brass is it's the makeup of the alloys, the makeup of the metals that are within it. So that a navy brass is a much more durable brass. It doesn't tarnish as much. It can take a bit more, it doesn't corrode as easily. And the reason it's called navy brass is because that's the sort of brass that the Navy use. Because obviously in the past, brass was a big metal used on ships, on compasses, on bells, on all of those different things. And the Navy came up with a particular mix for the metal, which meant that it was much more durable, in sea and bad conditions and all of that kind of thing. So anyway, long story short, the brass Nemesis is made from navy brass. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Just have a quick go on it here. There's not really much more I can say because, I think if you can see that, and everybody has their own view on style or whatever, but for me that is just absolutely gorgeous, And even size-wise, in the hand, okay, that's 18-350 size, but with a K-Fun, which is not exactly a discrete atomizer on top of it, you can hold the whole thing within your hand, no problem at all. So best thing is, what we'll do is we'll go down close and I'll show you all the different configurations, because obviously it comes with different rings so that you can put in your different battery sizes, and we'll just talk a little bit more about the detail of the Nemesis from Atmomechanic. Okay, so here are my two Nemesis or Nemesises or Nemesi, whatever the plural of Nemesis is. Sorry, whatever the plural of Nemesis is. So here we have the basic units, and they are 18,350. These rings here are for 18,650. This ring, or these rings here, are for 18,500, and these rings here are if you want to use a kick within it. Now that is what a kick looks like, and we can talk about that later. So all of these actually are interchangeable between the two as well, so I can actually mix and match the the brass with the stainless steel. Also within these, in each case you get a spare spring, which actually goes into it, which I think has a slightly different pressure on it than the one that actually comes in it. But also what you can get for the switch at the bottom is our magnets. Now, I actually have put the magnets in place in here, but what I'll do is I'll show that to you later on, how you can actually take out the spring that it comes in and replace them with magnets. And by replacing the magnets, it just seems to work even better than before. Really, really smooth. So what we'll do now is I'll take one of these away and we'll just go through each of the different battery sizes and each of the different options. Right, before I go into showing the different sizes, etc., we'll just have a quick little go around the Nemesis itself. As I said, this brass one here, this is made of navy brass, which I've had this for just over a week now, and what you see there is as it is after a week of daily use. So you will see on some of the other rings that there's a slight difference. So this has actually gone back a little bit in terms of its colour, but at the same time it still remained really quite shiny, which sort of surprised me. I presumed that it would go back to completely dull very, very quickly. Now maybe that will happen in time, but as it stands at the moment, this is after a week's worth, and literally just before I put it on camera, I just wiped it down with some kitchen towel, so I didn't polish it or anything like that. Okay, so there's the basic unit. Now what we can do is start taking it apart so we can see what each of the different bits are. First bit, and this is and I'll show it to you in a while why this is so good, but here's the switch. At the bottom of the switch you'll see there's a silver contact. Now that is actually silver plated brass, but I think the silver plating on it seems to be quite thick on it. Really, really smooth. As I said, when it comes with a spring in place, but you can buy magnets, and magnets are in this at the moment. So essentially the way it works is you've obviously got the two poles on a magnet. And as with any two magnets, if you push them together one way, they sort of attract each other and they stick to each other. Yeah. The other way, they actually oppose each other and they try and push back from each other. So that's what this is utilizing. It's utilizing that, the resistance, the sort of pushback of two magnets. And the magnets are like little washers that go into the bottom of it. As we see here, we've got some channels here at the side, and that would be to do with venting the battery should you have an issue at any stage. There's enough room there for it to vent and to come out of the bottom there. Looking at the bottom of this one, you can see we've got the steam train on it, the locomotive. And the difference between that and what you get on a stainless steel one is that's what you get on the stainless steel. You still get, you see there's a train there, but on this one it's the full train. Okay, so that's the switch, and we'll break the switch down later on so you can see it further. Let's just take this battery out. Looking at this now, you have here this ring which is on all of them, and what this ring is for is to lock it. So again, if I just pop this on quickly, and we can, now if I just line it up properly, of course it goes on like it should. Okay, that fires at the moment, as you can see, but if I turn this ring around here, turn that down to there, then it won't fire. So that's essentially a locking ring, which is dead handy. If we go to the other end, up to the top end here, if you look in there, you can see there's a pin, which is an adjustable pin. And again, this is a reason why this is one of the reasons why this is so good and so versatile, this particular design of mod. You can also see at the top there, there's a little bit of sort of scarring at the top. That's purely because I've been putting, this is, remember the brass one, I've been putting so many different atomizers on the top of it, and brass is generally a fairly soft metal, so you are going to see a little bit of scoring happening as a consequence of that. But then again, that's not the bit that's on show, so it really doesn't matter. Inside there where you've got the adjustable pin, again that is silver plated, that particular contact there. So if we look to the side of this, we will see that there are a couple of holes. Okay, now they are actually air holes, so there is air control within this top. Now if you turn it around, you will see that on the other part of this there are two dots. Now if you line those two up like that, that means that then you are getting full airflow through here and up through here. If you turn it slightly so that you've only got one, then you've only got half an amount of airflow. So in other words, that's fully open and that's then reducing. And then you turn it beyond that and now there's no airflow coming through that at all. So again, very, very simple. Now I've just taken the top of this apart just to show you how exactly the air flow system works. So here's the top part, that's what your atomizer is sitting on, and then here's the bottom part. Now, as you know, I showed you earlier on the two holes at the top there. And then if you look down here, this is sitting onto this. There are two holes here, which, let's see if you can see on the inside, if it's going to be possible to show you. I'm not sure whether, yeah, you can probably just see them there. There's two air holes there, and they correspond obviously with the two holes there. So that if you then put this on, so that that hole is actually corresponding with that, then you've got those aligned on that side, and then on the inside you've got the two holes at the bottom there, you can see just under the threads. So in that particular position, if I can find where they are, when that's pushed down, that is fully open. But obviously if you turn that around, then these holes here can't take any air anymore to let it into the center. So that's basically how it works. And then there's an O-ring here, which keeps everything firmly in place. Now what you can also do is with the Nemesis, you can actually get different versions of this ring here, so that you can get versions which will basically fit different size atties on the top. So this one is a 22mm, but you can actually get them so that they're sort of raked back, so they're narrower at the top here than they are at the bottom. So that means that you can get one for, I think, a 16mm, 17mm and 20mm. In fact, I think you can even get down to 14mm. So essentially what there is an option on this ring to get different shapes, so that the top part is a different diameter to take whatever atomizer it is that you want to go on. Now obviously all of them will just fit on as it is, unless it's got Eco cone threading. They will just fit on as it is. But by having these raked back ones, it just can make it look a lot more attractive, you know, for whatever atomizer you're putting it on. So what I'll do is I'll just pop this back into place, and that basically just pushes back down onto that there like that, and that's our head back again. Now on the underside you can see you've got a contact here, which again, this is obviously the other side of that there. There is a slot for a screwdriver, in that case, so that if you already had this on something, you could actually screw this down so that it makes better contact with the battery. But in reality, you don't really need to do that, because this is very easy to turn, this little knurled ring, knurled screw here, and I'll show you now in a second why it makes life so much easier having it done in this particular way. And then as to the rings themselves, well, look, let's see, you can see there, you know, with, again, talking to Michalis, these are not mass produced. They only produce a certain number of them. And now they do so on a regular basis. But there's always a much, much greater demand than there is a supply. And what he was saying to me basically was that they haven't got, you know, the capacity really to be able to produce huge numbers of these. And nor is there, I think, a great will to do that either, because they take a huge amount of pride in their work. And I think he was saying to me that, you know, before one of these things actually leaves their workshop, it's been essentially inspected about 5 times, and it's been inspected by the people who are actually working on them, you know. So everything is being looked at. Everything is sort of absolutely perfect. And so you can be pretty much guaranteed that if you actually buy one of these things, when it arrives, it is going to be, you know, just as mine were, just absolutely perfect in every single way. And I think, again, this is probably a reason why it has gained so much, or this legendary status, if you like, because of the fact that people have been so taken by them, and when they do get them, they just want to, you know, hold on to them or get another different version, because there are different versions that have actually been coming out recently. And again, what I'll do is I'll show you a couple of pictures later on as to some of those different types that are actually available out there. Right, getting back to the top here, what I'll do is I'll show you how to actually put a top onto this, as in an atomizer onto it. And again, it just shows how easy the whole thing is. Okay, so if I go back to the K-Fun that I had sitting on top of it earlier on, with a little short brass drip tip there, from the same guys in Atmomachani, how would you actually put this on? Okay, well, basically, what you do is you screw your Atty, take this off the mod, and then screw your Atty onto it. Okay, so you screw it on, and if you get to the point like I have there, where it won't actually go any further onto it, basically all you have to do is slacken back this screw here, turn that until it's fully on, and then just turn that, not tight, but just enough so that you get a contact. Now, what that means now is that you've got a perfect contact between, you know, the battery would be touching onto this here, between that and the bottom of your atomizer. So that means, again, that depending on your atomizer, quite often, you know, these, you know, different atomizers, they have different lengths coming out here. And so basically, you know, it can be a real frustration, because with some of the mods that are out there, they have a floating pin. And certainly a floating pin is basically better than having a set pin. But even with a floating pin, you might have 1 or 2 mils, you know, float within it. Sometimes you're not always going to get the perfect contact. Whereas with this particular method, as simple as it is, it just guarantees that every single time, by screwing that on, by tightening that up, that you have absolutely perfect contact with your battery. And then all you do is just pop this in to here, screw it on, and now what you see has happened here is that I can't screw this up any further. So all I do is I slacken off, and this is what I said earlier on about the switch. Amazing switch, very, very innovative when it came out. You just back that off. That gives you room to then screw that up as far as you want it to go, so that's now fine. And there's a shake there, you can hear it, so it's loose in it. But then all you do is you just screw that back up to there, and there's no shake. And now you're absolutely ready to go with your Nemesis. So because of that, being able to tighten things up at the bottom there, being able to make sure that you're always going to have the perfect connection here, it just means that every time it is set up exactly as it needs to be set up, and it works like a charm. perfect. I mean, really, it doesn't get much better than that as far as I'm concerned. And I'll just actually show you on the silver one, on the stainless steel one, I'll just put something on top of it here, an interesting little atomizer I got recently. And it's the same thing. It just fits absolutely perfectly onto it. That there is called a Flashy Vapor. It's from Germany. Wonderful atomizer. So let's go back down again, and what we'll do is we'll go through each of the different versions, put each of the different rings on it, and then you can see, you know, how each of the different batteries fit in. And then also what I'll do is I'll show you how to use a kick in each case as well, if you want to kick it. Okay, so here are all our pieces. Now, I've got 3 batteries here. So I've got an 18650, an 18500, and an 18350. I've got a kick here as well, an Evolve kick. This is the version 1, along with the kick ring. Then we've got our button for the bottom. We've got our top here, which I showed you in detail. And then we've got 3 different size rings here. So basically this is the ring which is for the 18500, and rather the tube that's for the 18500, and here's the tube that is for the 18650. And then it's a combination of those plus this here which allows us to actually use a kick. So what I'll do is I'll put them aside, and we'll start off with the first one and show you all of the various different variations. Okay, we'll start off with the 18350, which is the smaller of all of them, obviously. So we just take our base unit there, it's easier for me to do it this way here, and then just screw the button in there, but don't screw it in terribly tight, you know, initially. Then we have our 18350, and then we have our head on there. We just screw that on like that. And then if we have a rattle, like we have, then all you do is you just screw that up to the point where you get a bit of resistance, and then bang, that's it. 18350, very, very straightforward. Now, usually the best way, as far as I'm concerned anyway, is when you're actually, you know, putting on new rings, when you're changing things in general, putting in a new battery, even if you were taking the battery out of this one and putting a recharged one back in, it's easier to actually do it from the top, load it from the top rather than the bottom, because there's a lot more turns are required to get this off than there is to get this off. So always do it from the top, just a lot quicker. So we take that out. So that was our 18350. Here's an 18500. So we pop that in, but before we do that, we need to get the extension. And the ring for that is this particular ring here. So in other words, it's the smaller of the 2 extra rings that you get. So we just pop that on there. Put in our 18500. Screw the top in. Down to there, and again, little bit of a rattle, so all you do is just screw that up there till you get some resistance, and that's it. 18500, dead simple. Now we take this one out, and for our 18650, what we need to do is take this ring off, put the bigger ring on here, like that. As I said, by the way, earlier on, this bottom part and this middle ring I've been using for about a week. This extension here I haven't been using at all. So you can see that there's a slight difference in the finish. So this particular part here has essentially been in the bag that it arrived right since when I got it. So you can see there's a bit of a change. But at the same time, this bottom part, it's just gone slightly milkier in terms of colour, but it's still retaining a sort of a luster and a shine, which is really nice. So anyway, there we go. Stop blathering. Put on the extra tube there for the 18650. So pop in the 18650 in there, and again, same old drill. Screw that onto the top, like that, and I'm meeting resistance straight away. So what I need to do is slack this off here. Sorry, I'll just screw the safety ring back up there so it's not in the way. So screw that back there, slack that off a bit, screw that up now till you get it so that it's nice and tight, and then screw that back up there, and now we have 18650. Now, many of you will know what a kick is, but some may not. So here is a kick. And essentially what a kick does, when you think about it, a mechanical mod has absolutely no electronics in it whatsoever. It's got no wires, nothing like that. So it is unregulated. So as you use a battery within it, the battery will start off at a higher voltage, you know, I think probably around 4.1, 4.2, something like that. And then as you drain it, as you use it, the power basically becomes less coming out of it. So that means that as it starts to run down, you're getting less power coming through. So that means that, you know, it's not heating up the coil in your atomizer as much. So you're essentially not, you know, there's an inconsistency, if you like, within vaping on a mechanical mod. Now, for many people, myself included, that doesn't bother me at all. For some people it does. So the way around that is that you basically turn this absolutely mechanical mod into a regulated mod. And to do that, you use something like this, which is an Evolve kick. Now this is the version 1. And essentially what this does is, what you do here is you actually set the wattage that you want to actually vape at. So that could be, you know, 9 watts, could be 10 watts, could be, you know, whatever it happens to be. And once you've actually set that, that means that this will control the power that's actually being sucked out of the battery to give you a consistent vape up until the point that the battery cannot deliver that amount of electricity anymore, at which point it just stops functioning. But it's designed to basically keep the power consistent up until the point that the battery can't actually sustain that power anymore. So that's essentially what it is. So with some people, what they like to do is, you know, with a mechanical mod, is to actually put an Evolve kick into it, or, you know, a kick made by somebody else. There are a number of different companies making these things now, but they all essentially function the same way. So we'll show you how to put a kick into these things. Now, again, what we're doing is we'll take these apart. Now, for the 18350, which is the smaller of the batteries that it takes, so that one there, what we need to do is add on this. Let's put the bigger one here so you can see all the bits here, so you know which bits I'm using. So the bit that I'm using here in this particular case is this ring here. So what we do is we put this ring in. And I'll tell you what, before I do that, we're going to need a kick ring. And here's the kick ring here. I find that putting the kick ring, the kick ring can either go here or it can actually go here. But I find putting the kick ring in the middle, first of all, makes it look a little bit better. But second of all, it's easier to get back off. Because this is pretty small, you know, it's relatively thin, when you actually put it onto this one here, which it'll screw on fine to it, no problem. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to get it back off. So if you're using a kick ring, I would certainly recommend that the kick ring goes on in the middle of the tubes. So we put the kick ring on there. Then what we do is we put this particular ring on here, like that. And then what's going to go in there is the battery and the kick. Now, I can pop the battery in, I can pop the kick in. Now some people, look, you can actually put the kick in through the threaded end like I've just done there, but some of these kicks, they're, you know, maybe slightly tighter than others, you know, they're not all cut exactly the same way. So what may be easier for you is to actually put in the kick from the other side. So let's have a go here. So let me take that out there and I'll pop the kick ring on here like that. And then if you actually pop the kick in this way here, it can sometimes be a little bit easier because it's not actually having to pass over these threads here. But that's entirely up to yourself. Essentially what's going to happen is that you're going to have your battery there and you're going to have your kick in this part here. So let's screw that down. Okay, so then all we need to do is basically put the top on it. Now you can see the top of the kick, there's the contact, and you can see here we have our silver plated screw which is our contact at the top. Okay, so again, what you do at this point is you would put on your ATI onto it, make sure that that's tightened up properly, and then essentially screw this on. And then what you do is the usual thing. You'd screw this up to the point where you start to feel a bit of resistance, and then hey ho, what have you got? You've now got an electronic mechanical. So within this now, this is set for 10 watts, and let's just put the ATI on top of it here, just to make sure that you can see exactly how it works. So let's pop that on there, and I'll do my usual thing here, just to back this off. Take that off there, screw that on, turn, screw that on, turn that to that point there, put that on there, back that off, turn it on, and that's it. I have to actually go back a little bit there for you to see it, but that's it there, and working absolutely perfectly. So that's now 10 watts. And it works a dream. Back in again. Okay, so let's just take the top part off here, and I'll leave that atomizer on it for the moment. And what we need to do now is put on a kick onto an 18500 battery. So there's our 18350 done. Now, let's take our kick out there. What we're going to be using is we're actually going to be using the bigger ring. Now, it would appear in some cases there seems to be a bit of an anomaly here. In some cases I've seen people with batteries that they just seem to be slightly longer than this particular 18500 that we have here, because what they use is they use this bigger ring and they also use the kick ring. But what I find is that if I use on the 18500 version, if I use both of them, basically I wouldn't there's too much room inside it. So what I do with the 18500 is I just use the extension that is normally just used for the 18650. So pop that in, and again what we'll do is we'll put our kick in from the non-threaded end like that, so we can just shove that in like that, pop that down like that, screw that on, screw this in at the top here. Now I'm going to have to back off the switch here, screw that in there like that, and then screw that down, and there we have it. So that is, you can hear it going, that's 18500 kicked. And again, you're getting that slight difference there just purely on the basis that this ring hasn't been used at all and the rest of it obviously has. But it would appear though with some people, I'm not sure whether it's to do with the different manufacturers of the batteries, for the 18500 what you're going to need, you are going to actually need this. But let me just actually put this on as an example, just to actually show you. So I'll take this off here, I'll put this ring on here, and I'll screw it in here. So now we've got the kick ring and we've got the larger of the tubes onto it, so you can see that. Now you see what happens in my case is if I then turn this up, it turns up so far that it basically won't fire. So for me, the batteries that I have for the 18500, I do not use the kick ring. Okay, on to the next one. So let's take this apart, and for basically a kicked 18650, essentially what you need is all of the rings. So everything that we have, we need the kick rings, and we also need each of the extension tubes. So let's just pop that on there, and then we can pop this in here. So that's our 18650. Shove that in there. Now I need to select that off because I'd obviously screwed it up the whole way earlier on. Get the locking ring back up to the top, so screw that there. And I screw that into there, and then again bring that back up to that point. So now what we have, and again just pull it back a little bit, there it is, the Nemesis in 18650 kicked mode. Let's see how it works. And it would do better if, just tighten that up there. There we go. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So as I said earlier on, you're able to, all the threading on all of the Nemesis is the same. So, you know, you're able to kind of mix and match if you like. So just try if you, I haven't actually done this up until now, so well, let's just try a couple of them and see how it sort of works out. So there's one now, and that is an 18500. And as you can see, we're going brass, we're going stainless steel, brass, stainless steel on the K-Fun, and brass again at the top. Now, if we actually, let's just see here, and I might do a bit fast forwarding here because it'll take a wee while to try each of these different versions. So, okay, so what I did now this time is I've taken the locking ring off the stainless steel one and I've put it onto this. So that's what we're ending up with, something like that. Again, which I think looks kind of cool. Okay, and then here's another one, and this is basically the stainless steel one with a couple of the brass elements on it. And you can see there, I think that looks pretty good as well. So you've got the brass accents here on the locking ring, on the 18500 extension, and then in this case on the drip tip as well. But again, I think that looks really, really good. But personally, I am going to keep each one as it is. So the brass one will stay completely brass, and the stainless steel one will stay completely stainless steel, because I think both of them in their own right look absolutely fantastic, but it does kind of look pretty cool like that as well. So I'm not sure that there's much more I can say really, other than the fact that, you know, I'd have to say really, when it comes to mechanicals, the Nemesis are my favourite. There's a simplicity of them, but also the versatility of them, the fact that you can, you've got this really, really good switch at the bottom, which, as I said, now has magnets in it, which is just so smooth, but also the fact that you can make it go up and down to tighten up the battery within it, that you've got airflow at the top of it. The fact that it's all just so smooth, everything just works so well, the threads in it are fantastic. Also the cost of them, relatively speaking, relative to some other mods that are actually out there, it's about €130, and that is October 2013 prices. Which for me, for something which has had that much time spent on it, where there's the level of quality control that it is definitely there. I think that's really quite good value. As I've said before as well, it just looks really, many different things just look so good on them. I mean, I showed you, I think the let's just put it on again here. This is on the stainless steel one. This is the Flashy Vapor. And even though this is a 23mm ATI and this is a 22mm mod, so it is wider than this, it still looks really, really good on it. Now in this case that's helped because you've got this sort of knurled part at the bottom of the ATI, but let's take that off and see if we can find something else to put onto it. Okay, let's put a squape onto it. Now let's see what width is the squape. The squape is 23 again. So let's put this on it and see what it looks like. Sorry, I just need to back off the screw a little bit just so it sits snugly down on it. There we go. Pop that in there. Screw it all up. Tighten up the button at the bottom. And there it is with a squape on it. And again, I just think it looks absolutely fantastic. And vapes very well too. Of the two of them, what would be my favourite? It's kind of really hard to tell, actually, because, you know, this is just so good, and I've grown so fond of it, you know, my stainless steel one. But I'd have to say that, you know, for me, the brass one, there's just something about the brass one which just makes it that much more special. I think it looks great. I think, again, I haven't showed you many different things on it, but again, I think most things that you put on it look pretty good on it, look very good on it. And then if you've got a brass drip tip just to sort of, you know, sandwich, because there's very few brass atomizers out there, fully brass ones, so it's nearly always going to be silver, that a little bit of brass as a drip tip on the top would be really good. Now, some people say that, you know, with brass drip tips that a taste comes off them. I don't know, I don't seem to get the taste. But there are other things. There's one that you can get, a German company called Trick Tips. And basically what it is, you've got a drip tip, but you've actually got a little bit of a brass sleeve around the drip tip. So what's actually going into your mouth is stainless steel, or titanium, I think, in that case. And then you've got this little brass cuff that goes around the edge, which would look, I don't have one, but that would look absolutely terrific on it as well. So Michalis and Katerina, the people behind all of this, Michalis is actually, he has a couple of things coming out shortly. Now what he has is one which is, I think the request originally came from Dimitri, the vaping Greek from the US, who many of you will know, who's a good buddy of Phil Basardo. He was in touch with him and basically said, you know, come on, make something, you know, I want to see something new coming out. And what he's actually come out with is an automatic dripper. And I'll put a picture up either here or here, whichever side it fits. And essentially what that is, it's a dripper. So it works as a dripper, but it's basically all you have to do is just touch the side of it, push it down. And what that does is that releases some drops from a reservoir above onto the actual coil. So essentially what you have is a dripper, but a dripper with a tank. And what you can then do is just control the drips by actually just pushing the top on it. Again, very innovative. I've seen one when I met Michalis. He was using one at the time, and it looked absolutely fantastic. It's not available yet, but will be coming out in a month's time, I think in about November. So hopefully I might be able to manage to get my hands on one of those. Another thing that I saw that he's coming out with is a 14500 version of the Nemesis. And 14500 is, it's a thinner battery. It's a thinner, smaller battery. And so, I mean, God, it's probably about maybe 2/3 the width of that, you know, something like that. And this Nemesis looks absolutely stunning. It looks really gorgeous. Exactly the same sort of level of quality. The ones that I saw were essentially like this, a matte brass, but they actually had, sorry, a matte stainless steel, but they actually had brass accents at the top and the bottom. And they just look so dainty, so pretty. And I would imagine that when they get released, they are, you know, everybody's going to want to get hold of them, because it really, you know, any mechanical mod which is carrying, or any mod at all, regulated or mechanical, that's carrying one of these sort of batteries is reasonably chunky. But if you can get something which is, you know, considerably, what would you say, narrower than this. I think basically the way it works is this is 18, right? So it's an 18500. So if you look at it, guess what? It's 18 millimeters wide. And in this particular case, because it's a 500, it's going to be 5 centimeters long, which it is. So the 14500 is going to be the same length as that, but rather than it being 18 millimeters across, it's going to be 4 millimeters narrower than that. So that I assume then that means that this mod is going to be at least 4 millimeters narrower, the 14500 version that he's coming out with, than this particular one here. And so I think, again, that's going to be very, very attractive to a lot of people. It'll just be, much more discreet. And as I said, if I can find a photo, I'll put it up here. I meant to take a photo of it over there, but of course I didn't. If I can find one, I'll put it up there. If not, hopefully when it comes out, I'll see if I can get hold of one, and we can do a review of that as well. But my understanding is essentially it's the same thing. It's just a different size. So it has all the same quality elements, the same sort of machining, the same quality control, the same, silver contacts, silver coated contacts, and all of that. So that's it. Nothing really more for me to say about it, other than the fact that the Nemesis, as a mechanical, is my favourite. I can understand why all over the world people are actually using them. And if you get the opportunity to get hold of one, I would suggest that, it's a very, very good investment, because they just work. They just work. So that's it. So I hope you got something out of that review, and hopefully catch you again soon. All the best. Cheers.